Eminem, he gave me his demo like 6 times.
What?
Yeah, I f***ed up big time.
Yeah, you.
Biggest mistake in hip-hop history.
Fat Joe came out and said he lied in 95% of his rhymes. What did you think of that?
He told the truth for the first time, that he's a liar, that you can't believe nothing that comes.
Fat Joe's been part of hip-hop for decades, a real veteran who's shared moments with some of the biggest names in the game. With over 30 years in the industry, his journey is packed with stories that made major headlines. From reportedly turning down Eminem's offer multiple times to proudly repping Puerto Ricans in hip-hop, Joey Crack's influence can't be denied, and he's always carried himself like a true figure of the culture. But lately, fans say something feels off. Joe's been so confident about his legacy that he started calling out fakes and frauds, claiming he stands above the rest. Still, the more he talks, the more people are starting to question if that same honesty he preaches is really there. Some now joke that he's turned from Fat Joe into Cap Joe, and the internet hasn't stopped talking about it. In hip-hop, storytelling has always been part of the art, but sometimes the line between truth and exaggeration gets blurry. Just like others before him, Snoop Dogg, Soulja Boy, even Rick Ross, Joe's name has started popping up in conversations about artists who might stretch the truth a little too far. Critics say his recent interviews sound more like image cleanups than confessions, especially after that CNN appearance where he called a lot of his old lyrics fiction.
I've been rapping professionally for 30 years. I've lied in almost 95% of my songs. I'm being honest. Lied.
Like how? What do you
just
mean?
go. I write like I feel that day. I'm just being creative. You know, if you could probably you couldn't build the jail high enough for the lyrics I've said on songs, which are all untrue. What I am is a family man, the person who gives back to my community all the time, open businesses in my community. So the music would never amount to the.
Now, fans are left wondering, has Fat Joe been reinventing his story or just trying to protect his legacy in a culture where authenticity means everything? This all went down during a CNN segment about whether rap lyrics should be used in court. And while Fat Joe's goal seemed to be defending artists' freedom of expression, what he said ended up raising eyebrows instead. Admitting that some lyrics were just stories might have sounded harmless to him, but in hip-hop, where realness is everything, that kind of statement hits differently. It even sparked backlash from Joe Budden, who called him out publicly and questioned his truthfulness. After that, Joe had to step in and clear things up, insisting his street image wasn't all smoke and mirrors. Still, many fans weren't fully convinced. They felt like he was trying too hard to clean up his past. And it didn't stop there. Fat Joe's habit of stretching stories seems to go way back, all the way to his early days in the Bronx. According to Joe, he was a real problem growing up, not just in the candy aisle, but out in the streets. He's claimed he once took on trained fighters during high school and even told a wild story about robbing an entire gym class and somehow getting help from the same students he robbed to make his getaway. Sounds unbelievable, right? Nobody really believed that wild story right off the bat, but they definitely couldn't stop talking about it. Fat Joe's one of those dudes who tells stories so confidently that you just let him talk, waiting to hear what wild twist comes next. People joke like, man, guess what Fat Joe told me today? Because his tales are that entertaining. The whole I robbed my entire gym class story became legendary. But let's be real, most folks agree he probably wasn't even near a gym when that happened. That story alone turned him into a local legend. Not because it was real, but because it was funny. Over time, Joe's reputation for exaggerating became part of his brand, earning him the title of hip-hop's biggest storyteller. By some, and by others, the rap game's biggest liar. Either way, the man knows how to keep people talking. But Joe's stories don't just stick to street life. Sometimes they reach deep into hip-hop history. One of the biggest ones he ever told involved the late, great Biggie Smalls. Joe claimed that before Biggie's tragic passing, the two had linked up to record a full joint album filled with diss tracks aimed at Tupac. Sounds intense, right? But when that story resurfaced, people close to Biggie weren't buying it. Former music executive Lance Rivera publicly cast doubt on Joe's claim, saying he never heard of such a project. Lil Cease, one of Biggie's closest friends, even stepped in and said Big wouldn't have made a whole album centered around beef, and that he never once heard of any secret Fat Joe collaboration. So now, fans are left wondering, was Joe rewriting history again, or just keeping his legend alive with another wild tale? People who were actually around back then quickly shut down that story, saying there's no way it ever happened, which raises the real question. Why would Fat Joe even make something like that up? According to former Terror Squad member Cuban Link, Joe might have been trying to boost his image in the rap game by connecting himself to legendary moments that never really existed. As wild as his Biggie stories sound, his supposed ties to both sides of the East versus West Coast tension have also sparked plenty of doubt. During that era, Fat Joe was one of New York's biggest names, and he was proudly repping the East while Tupac led the charge for the West. Joe claimed that he was always ready to ride for Biggie, no hesitation. In one interview, he said that when his track got radio play, Tupac, who was locked up in New York at the time, actually heard it behind bars. According to Joe, that moment caused tension because some Puerto Rican inmates allegedly took it as Joe trying to start drama with Pac. But here's the twist. Joe also said he stepped in and made peace, claiming he was the one who laid down the law to keep Pac safe. It's a bold story. But just like the rest, people still aren't sure if it's fact or just another Fat Joe legend. Even though a lot of people didn't believe Fat Joe's story, there was one surprising voice who partly backed it up. Tupac's close friend and Outlaws member, Napoleon. He admitted there might have been some truth to what Joe said, but still, it's hard to know for sure since Pac isn't here to clear the air. On the flip side, Pac's cousin, William Sane, straight up rejected Joe's version, saying it just didn't line up with what really happened. Now, Fat Joe has always taken pride in his Puerto Rican and Cuban roots. He's never been shy about representing his culture loud and proud. But sometimes that same pride has landed him in hot water. One of the biggest controversies hit when Joe claimed that Latinos were just as essential in the creation of hip-hop as Black artists were. That statement caused a major stir online, with people across the culture debating it non-stop. Critics quickly fired back, saying his words were misleading. Many argued that while Latino artists absolutely helped build and spread the movement, the foundation of hip-hop came from Black culture, from the sounds, rhythms, and spirit born in those early Bronx block parties. Some even pointed out that Puerto Ricans joined the movement later on, after it was already taking shape. Even other Latino voices disagreed with him, saying they didn't want to be dragged into that argument. And when the clip blew up, figures like Tariq Nasheed and Lord Jamar clapped back hard, reminding Joe that being there afterward isn't the same as creating it. To make things worse, Joe later contradicted himself on his own Joe and Jada show, saying that his own father once told him not to rap because there weren't many Latinos in hip-hop at the time. That left fans even more confused about where Joe really stands. Fat Joe's storytelling really hit new heights during the Joe and Jada show, his podcast with Jada Kiss, and let's just say fans have heard some wild stuff there. Ever since the show dropped, Joe's been firing off story after story, some so unbelievable that even his co-hosts can't help but look confused. And trust me, a few of those pause-worthy moments have left the internet in stitches. From outrageous claims to strange name drops, Joe's imagination seems to know no limits. Listeners have started to notice that some of his tales sound suspiciously familiar, like he's pulling pieces straight from old TV shows or pop culture. For example, when he randomly mentioned Julio Fuentes, fans quickly realized that's actually the name of Fred Sanford's neighbor from Sanford and son. People couldn't help but laugh and say, "Come on, Joe, we know that one's from TV." And then there's his growing list of firsts that fans say don't really add up. Lately, Joe's been getting compared to Soulja Boy for how often he claims to have been the first to do something in hip-hop. During a recent Complex interview, he even said he was supposed to be the first rapper to ever get a Jordan sneaker collab. And if that wasn't enough, he also claimed he was the original customer at the iconic sneaker shop Flight Club. Joe's confidence is unmatched, but some fans are definitely side-eyeing those stories. Sometimes Fat Joe's stories go so far that he ends up placing himself in movements or moments that fans say he had nothing to do with. One example that raised eyebrows was when he claimed he used to be a 5%er, a group with deep roots in the Nation of Islam. But the minute he said it, people actually involved in that movement quickly shut it down, saying there's no record of Joe ever being part of it. And that's not the only time Joe's tried to stamp his name deeper into history. He once said he was the first rapper ever to perform at the legendary Apollo Theater in Harlem. Now, to be fair, Joe did have some real success there. He won Amateur Night 4 times, which is no small feat. But the problem is, he didn't actually need to exaggerate. That accomplishment was already impressive on its own. Still, Joe being Joe, he couldn't resist adding a little extra flair to the tale. He's even gotten small details twisted in stories that had some truth to them. Like when he said, Tupac grew up in the Bronx, which isn't completely false, but not fully accurate either. Pac was born in New York, spent time in Harlem and the Bronx, then moved to Baltimore before heading out west, where his legacy took off. And speaking of Pac, Joe once claimed Tupac brought him on stage. And funny enough, that part was actually confirmed by Big Daddy Kane. But Kane also teased him, saying, "Yeah, you were there, but your version sounds way more dramatic than what really happened." By now, Joe's habit of stretching the truth has become such a running joke that even Jadakiss laughs about it on air, and guests are starting to play along too. It's almost like Cappin' Joe has become a whole character of his own. Even Jadakiss seems to be in on the joke these days. When Joe starts telling one of his wild stories, like when he claimed he almost signed Joey Bada, Jada doesn't hold back. He literally waves flags mid-show, cracking up the audience and turning the moment into comedy gold. Fans tune in not just for the interviews, but to see what unbelievable story Joe's gonna drop next. One viewer even joked, "This man got more fairy tales than Walt Disney." And honestly, it's hard to argue with that. Over time, Joe himself has started admitting that he sometimes gets the details mixed up. Most of the time, it's all in good fun, part of his personality, part of his charm. But every now and then, things get a little heavier, especially when his stories involve people who aren't here to defend themselves, like his late friend and rap partner, Big Pun. Back in the 90s, Fat Joe and Big Pun were unstoppable. Together, they built Terror Squad and put it on the map. The bond they shared looked unbreakable. But after Pun tragically passed away at just 28, many believed Joe would make sure his friend's family was taken care of forever. So when a documentary later revealed that Pun's wife had reportedly been living in a shelter, fans were heartbroken and shocked. Joe quickly went on Hot 97 to defend himself, claiming he did everything he could to help, but not everyone bought that explanation. And that's where things started to get complicated. When asked why he cut off Big Pun's family, Fat Joe claimed it was because Pun's widow had spoken negatively about her late husband, a story he stuck with for years. Joe insists he did everything possible to support them, but others in the music business have challenged that version hard. According to music publishing expert Congo Go Roach, things weren't as clear as Joe made them sound. Roach claimed that after years of legal battles, he helped Pun's wife finally receive what she was owed. Even though Joe has publicly denied any wrongdoing, reportedly, this whole dispute even delayed a tribute project meant to honor Big Pun's legacy, since Joe allegedly wanted to clear his own name first. To this day, the topic remains painful for Pun's widow. In fact, during one interview, she walked off set the moment someone suggested she should apologize to Joe, showing just how deep those wounds still run. After everything that's come out, many fans now joke that Fat Joe has fully earned his King of Cap nickname. But behind the humor, some say there's a serious side to it, because Joe genuinely seems to believe that his podcast and public image will one day prove him right. Still, others worry that the more he talks, the more he might end up twisting the story again, rewriting history one episode at a time. Still, not everyone shows Fat Joe the kind of love he once got from Pusha T. In fact, fans online have been picking apart everything about him lately, from joking that he never changed his name from Fat Joe to Slim Joe after losing weight, to calling out his too perfect beard. People are saying deception might just be part of his style. Some have even started breaking down how he crafts his wild stories, like it's become an art form of its own. But here's the truth. No matter how many questionable claims he's made, nobody can deny how much Fat Joe has done for hip-hop. His legacy is cemented in the game, period. Still, when someone's reputation for tall tales grows bigger than their actual achievements, it starts to blur the line between fact and fiction. And that's exactly what's happening now. Joe's name is more relevant than it's been in years, but that fame comes with a risk. If he keeps leaning into these exaggerated stories, the same thing that keeps him trending could end up staining his legacy forever. So what do you think? Is Fat Joe misunderstood or just doing too much? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, share this video with your crew, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives like this.